Rio Grande wasn't just John Ford's third cavalry western. It was a hostage transaction, a film Ford despised making, forced upon him by a studio boss who held the quiet man ransom, shot in brutal desert heat while Ford publicly humiliated his biggest star, and a director who'd won 3 Oscars treated the entire production as an obstacle to surmount before doing what he actually wanted. Behind those stunning Monument Valley images lies a production history soaked in studio blackmail, directorial contempt, racist scripting condemned by Hollywood's own censors, a stuntman death controversy that divided the cast for decades, and a Navajo community deceived into portraying their ancestral enemies. John Wayne had to personally apologize to a studio president just to get cameras rolling. Ford insulted Wayne so brutally that young Claude Jarman thought the cast lived in genuine fear. And when the dust settled in November 1950, the film Ford called a throwaway had earned enough money to unlock one of cinema's most beloved masterpieces. Here are 20 dark facts about Rio Grande, from the stuntmen who allegedly drowned in a muddy river to the censors who called the script blatantly brutal. Let's ride into Monument Valley. Number 20. Ford despised making this film. John Ford wins 3 Academy Awards before Rio Grande enters production. He directs The Informer, The Grapes of Wrath, and How Green Was My Valley. He's a legend, and he considers Rio Grande beneath him. Ford openly calls it a throwaway picture, a commercial obligation with no artistic purpose beyond satisfying a studio president's demand for guaranteed box office returns. Ford biographer Nancy Schoenberger confirms in her 2017 book that Ford considered Rio Grande a throwaway film. Film critic Scott Amon writes that it lacks the depth of feeling Ford infused into the other 2 Cavalry pictures, attributing this directly to Ford's lack of passion for the project. Ford sees the entire production as an obstacle to surmount before starting The Quiet Man, the film he actually wants to make. This professional contempt shapes every decision. Ford shoots the film faster than any previous production, completing it in 32 days. He doesn't linger on scenes, doesn't pursue perfection, doesn't agonize over details the way he does on films he cares about. His indifference becomes the production's defining characteristic. The director who transformed Monument Valley into cinema mythology treats his third visit to that sacred landscape as a chore. Number 19. Wayne forced to apologize to Yates. Before a single camera rolls on Rio Grande, John Wayne must swallow his pride and apologize to a man he despises. Herbert Yates, the Republic Pictures studio president, and Wayne have had a bitter falling out. They're not on speaking terms. This creates a problem because Ford needs both Yates to finance Rio Grande and Wayne to star in it. Ford approaches Wayne with blunt instructions. Go apologize to Yates. Not because Wayne did anything wrong, not because an apology is deserved, but because Ford needs Yates cooperative and friendly enough to greenlight the production and later finance The Quiet Man. Wayne's wounded pride is less important than Ford's creative ambitions. Wayne complies. He approaches Yates, offers an apology, and accepts the studio president's acceptance. The humiliation is complete. According to Scott Imon's Ford biography, this forced reconciliation sets Ford on a fast track toward Ireland, working faster on Rio Grande than on any other film in his career. The apology becomes the foundation on which both Rio Grande and The Quiet Man get built. Without Wayne's swallowed pride, neither film happens. Number 18. Studio blackmail over Quiet Man. Herbert Yates holds The Quiet Man hostage. The Republic Pictures president reads the script, a romantic Irish comedy about a retired boxer who falls for a fiery redhead, and declares it a silly, stupid little Irish story that will never make a penny. He refuses to finance it. Ford has tried every major studio. They all reject The Quiet Man using almost identical language. Republic is his last option. Yates makes his terms explicit. I'll finance the picture if you make a Western first, with the same director, same producer, same cast and crew, same everybody, to make up for the money I'm going to lose on The Quiet Man. Ford has no leverage and no alternatives. He accepts. Rio Grande gets made as a financial guarantee for a film Yates considers worthless. The cruel irony emerges in 1952 when The Quiet Man earns $3,800,000 in its first year, vastly outperforming Rio Grande, becoming Republic's #1 film, and earning Ford his 4th Best Director Oscar. Yates's guaranteed moneymaker gets overshadowed by the silly Irish story he tried to kill. Number 17. Green censures slaughter in script. Joseph Breen, head of the Production Code Administration, reads the Rio Grande script and responds with alarm. The man responsible for enforcing Hollywood's moral standards warns the studio that the script contains excessive brutality and slaughter that will not pass regional censorship boards. The problem lies in the treatment of Apache characters. Screenwriter James McGinnis replaces the sympathetic Native American portrayals that Frank Nugent had created for Fort Apache and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon with what multiple film scholars describe as simplistic savages. While Breen focuses on the violence, film historian Scott Nolan notes that Rio Grande's reactionary attitude toward Apaches reflects a racism that even the era's censors found excessive. Breen's intervention forces some revisions to the on-screen violence, but the fundamental characterization survives. The Apaches in the final film remain underdeveloped antagonists without individual identity or cultural context. The same director who gave Native American characters dignity and screen presence in his two previous Cavalry films produces, under McGinnis's script and his own indifference, a portrait of indigenous people that the production's own censor flagged for its cruelty. Number 16. Navajo actors deceived about roles. The production brings 50 Navajo men up from the reservation to appear in the film, accompanied by translator Lee Bradley. They're hired as extras for a major Hollywood Western, an opportunity for employment and visibility. Nobody tells them they'll be portraying Apache. The Navajo and Apache nations have a complicated historical relationship stretching back generations. Portraying Apache warriors isn't simply an acting assignment for Navajo performers. It carries cultural weight, historical significance, and personal meaning. The production team knows this. They hire the translator specifically to communicate with the Navajo cast. Yet according to the AFI catalog Billy Yellow, one of the Navajo men selected for close-ups states 40 years later that they simply weren't told they were portraying Apache. The deception saves the production from potential refusal or negotiation about the portrayal, but it treats the Navajo performers as props rather than people, denying them the basic respect of honest communication about what roles they're actually playing. Number 15. Ford's brutal public humiliation of Wayne. On set, John Ford publicly insults and belittles John Wayne. Not privately, not subtly, openly, in front of cast and crew, in front of newcomers unfamiliar with Ford's methods. Maureen O'Hara recalls these humiliations in her autobiography Tis Herself, describing them as frequent and deliberate. Claude Jarman, a newcomer to Ford's productions, feels genuine fear on the set. Years later, Jarman recalls that, "You never knew what Ford was going to do." While veteran Ford collaborators understand the director's methods as a twisted form of motivation, Jarman reads the atmosphere accurately. The cast is scared. The most powerful director on a film set can make anyone uncomfortable when he chooses to. O'Hara, who had previously worked with Ford on How Green Was My Valley without experiencing this treatment, reevaluates their relationship after Rio Grande. She considers not working with Ford again because of his cruelty toward Wayne and his treatment of the entire cast. Only the promise of The Quiet Man, the project everyone actually wants to make, keeps her committed to the director. Number 14. Producer Yates ejected from set. Herbert Yates arrives on the Monument Valley location one morning, accompanied by fellow Republic executive Rudy Ralston. As studio president, Yates technically has authority over the production. He also has the ability to finance The Quiet Man or withdraw that support. He chooses this moment to demonstrate his authority by asking Ford when he intends to start shooting. Ford checks his watch. It's 10 in the morning. He delivers his response directly, under seventuation for his part. "Just as soon as you get the hell off my set." The studio president, who holds Ford's dreams hostage, gets ejected from the director's workspace in front of the entire cast and crew. The confrontation demonstrates the fundamental tension underlying the entire production. Yates holds financial power. Ford holds creative authority. When they collide, Ford refuses to yield his set regardless of commercial consequences. It's the one arena where Ford won't be bullied, won't compromise, won't show deference. Yates leaves. Shooting begins. The moment becomes one of the most repeated anecdotes in Ford production history. Number 13. The stuntman death controversy. Maureen O'Hara claims in her autobiography Tis Herself that stuntmen drowned during the shooting of Rio Grande. According to O'Hara, stuntmen fell from horses during a scene shot in the middle of a muddy river. Their bodies were allegedly never recovered. The claim creates a serious controversy that divides the cast even decades after production. Actor Harry Carey Jr., who appears in the film and participates in dangerous riding sequences, states before his death that the only stuntman injured on set was Chuck Hayward. No fatalities occurred during filming. Michael Blake's book, The Cavalry Trilogy, states there is no independent evidence from newspapers or film production records to support O'Hara's claims. The Daily Express publishes this finding explicitly. Yet O'Hara maintains her account in print and in interviews. Two members of the production contradict each other about whether men died making this film. The truth remains disputed. What's certain is that the conditions, a muddy river, real stunts, genuine physical danger, made such an accident plausible enough that decades later, the cast still can't agree on what actually happened. Number 12. Ford forced to use Sons of Pioneers. Herbert Yates insists the Sons of the Pioneers appear in Rio Grande. Yates likes singing cowboys. He thinks the group, with their harmonious Western ballads, will broaden the film's commercial appeal. Ford disagrees completely. He finds their presence incongruous. These are cavalrymen, not cowboys on a singing tour. Their appearance as regimental singers doesn't make military sense to Ford. But Ford has no leverage to refuse. The entire production exists because he accepted Yates's terms. Refusing to include the Sons of the Pioneers might jeopardize Yates's goodwill, and with it the financing for The Quiet Man. Ford swallows his artistic objection and puts the group in the film, though his contempt for the forced casting is documented in multiple production accounts. The irony is that the musical sequences become among the film's most beloved moments. When the Sons of the Pioneers serenade Kathleen York with "I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen" during her first night at the post, the scene achieves the tender emotional power Ford specializes in. Ken Curtis, one of the singers, makes such a favorable impression that Ford eventually casts him in future films and later welcomes him into the family when Curtis marries Ford's daughter Barbara. Number 11. Film never filmed near Rio Grande. The film is called Rio Grande. It's set on the Texas frontier near the Rio Grande River. The river is central to the plot. Apache raiders cross it to escape American military jurisdiction, forcing Wayne's character into an illegal incursion across the border. Yet not a single scene in Rio Grande was filmed anywhere near the actual Rio Grande River. The film is shot entirely in Utah and Arizona. Monument Valley, near the Utah-Arizona border, provides the iconic landscapes. The Colorado River, near Moab, Utah, serves as a visual substitute for the Rio Grande in scenes requiring a river backdrop. Professor Valley, Ida Gulch, and Onion Creek Narrows all substitute for a Texas frontier. None of the locations remotely resemble geographically. As the IMDb trivia section pointedly notes, of all the shooting locations listed, none are near or on the Rio Grande. It flows only in Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. The film that takes its name and central dramatic premise from a specific river never goes anywhere near that river. Ford shoots the Texas frontier in Utah and Arizona and trusts that audiences will accept the substitution without question. They do, but the fundamental geographic deception underlying the entire visual foundation of Rio Grande remains one of classic Hollywood's most brazen location frauds. Number 10. Title changed due to legal claim. Rio Grande almost wasn't called Rio Grande. According to film biographer Joseph McBride in his book Searching for John Ford, the film was actually produced under the working title Rio Bravo. The title gets dropped mid-production because someone makes a legal claim on the name. The AFI catalog confirms the film's working titles were Rio Bravo and Rio Grande Command before settling on the final title. The legal claim over Rio Bravo forces the name change to Rio Grande even though the film isn't set on or filmed near the Rio Grande. The discarded title Rio Bravo sits dormant for 9 years until Howard Hawks uses it for his 1959 John Wayne Western. Whether Hawks knowingly appropriated a title that Ford had been forced to abandon or simply came to the name independently remains an open question in Western film history. But the legal dispute that forced Ford to rename his film inadvertently gave Hawks one of cinema's most recognized Western titles. Number 9. Patrick Wayne's debut at 11. John Wayne's son, Patrick, makes his film debut in Rio Grande at 11 years old. The casting creates an unusual dynamic. John Wayne plays a father estranged from his son for 15 years, while his actual son appears in the same film in a minor role. The personal resonance cuts deeper than typical celebrity nepotism. Wayne's real family relationships are complicated. His marriages are troubled. His relationships with his children fluctuate between warmth and distance. Playing a cavalry colonel who barely knows his own enlisted son, while his actual child watches from the same set, adds layers of biographical subtext to every father-son scene. Patrick Wayne receives no special treatment or prominent screen time. He appears briefly, fulfilling a minor role in the production. His presence is more symbolic than dramatic, evidence that his father wanted to include him in the working environment, to show the boy what his father actually does when he disappears to make movies. Whether the experience brings them closer or simply demonstrates the limits of on-set family bonding, Patrick Wayne continues appearing in films throughout his own career. Number 8. O'Hara too young for mother role. Maureen O'Hara is 29 years old when Rio Grande films. Claude Jarman, playing her son, is 15. O'Hara plays the mother of a teenage soldier who's been separated from his father for 15 years. The mathematics are impossible. A 29-year-old cannot have a 15-year-old son she's been raising since a Civil War marriage. Multiple contemporary reviews note the casting problem explicitly. Yates insisted O'Hara be cast in Rio Grande as a condition of financing The Quiet Man. The studio president wanted the same combination of Wayne and O'Hara that would anchor his Irish investment. Nobody asks whether O'Hara is old enough to plausibly be Jarman's mother. The age gap between O'Hara and Jarman is only 14 years. She looks exactly what she is, a strikingly beautiful 29-year-old woman whose relationship with the teenage Jarman suggests older sister more than mother. Ford, who normally casts with precision and psychological insight, accepts the mismatch because the entire production exists to satisfy Yates's commercial requirements. Getting the casting right matters less than getting the film finished and getting to Ireland. Number 7. Actors forbidden to wash uniforms. Ford's commitment to military authenticity produces one of the production's most uncomfortable conditions. Actors and extras are strictly forbidden from washing their cavalry uniforms throughout the entire 32-day shoot. The directive comes directly from Ford, who wants the uniforms to look dusty, lived in, and authentically campaigned. The policy makes visual sense. Cavalry soldiers on an active frontier posting don't have regular access to laundry facilities. Their uniforms accumulate dust, sweat, and grime over weeks of service. Fresh, clean costumes would betray the film's period authenticity. Ford understands this and enforces the no washing rule without compromise. But Utah in summer is brutally hot. The cast wears wool cavalry uniforms in temperatures that drive the crew to dig pits covered by tarps just to create shaded resting places. Unwashed wool in desert heat becomes increasingly unpleasant to wear and stand near. Cast members spend 5 weeks in accumulating grime. No exceptions are made for principals. John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara, and every supporting actor wears the same uncleaned uniform from first day of shooting to last. Number 6. Korean War allegory that wasn't planned. Rio Grande enters production in June 1950, a few weeks before North Korea invades South Korea on June 25, 1950. By the time the film premieres on November 1, 1950, American troops are fighting and dying in a war that directly mirrors the film's central dramatic premise. Soldiers who cannot pursue enemies across an international border. Film historian Richard Slotkin, in his book on the frontier myth in America, identifies the river in Rio Grande as a yalu or iron curtain, which can only be crossed in arms for battles of rescue or annihilation. The Yalu River marks the border between North Korea and China that American commanders desperately want to cross, but cannot without triggering wider conflict. The Rio Grande in Ford's film functions identically. Film biographer Joseph McBride sees Rio Grande as an early warning allegory of the Korean War, expressing Ford's anti-communist feelings. But the film began production before the war started. Ford's cavalry western accidentally becomes a perfect contemporary allegory for the conflict consuming American attention at the moment of its release, not through planning, but through the uncomfortable coincidence of history mirroring art just months after filming wraps. Number 5. Ford treated Rio Grande as a vacation. Harry Carey Jr., who appears in the film and performs dangerous riding stunts alongside Ben Johnson and Claude Jarman, describes the Rio Grande location shoot as a vacation picture. The characterization reveals how casually Ford approaches the production compared to his serious work. On films Ford cares about, the atmosphere is intense, focused, and demanding. Every scene receives his full creative attention. He pushes actors, reshoots scenes repeatedly, and maintains relentless standards. On Rio Grande, that intensity disappears. Ford treats the shoot as a busman's holiday, technically professional but emotionally disengaged. The vacation atmosphere doesn't improve conditions for the cast. It actually makes things less predictable. Ford's demanding professionalism at least provides structure and purpose. His casual indifference leaves cast members uncertain what he wants, unsure whether their work meets his standards, unable to read his intentions. Claude Jarman's sense that you never knew what Ford was going to do reflects the combination of Ford's casual approach to the film with his volatile personal behavior toward the people making it. Number 4. 3 leads do their own stunts. Ben Johnson, Harry Carey Jr., and Claude Jarman actually performed the film's remarkable Roman-style riding sequence themselves, standing on horseback while the horses run at full speed. The sequence requires extraordinary balance, skill, and physical courage. Professional stunt performers normally execute such shots. These 3 men do it without doubles. Carey later explains the decision with startling candor. "We were all young and didn't think about the danger of it. Youth provides recklessness where experience provides caution. A production today would lose insurance coverage if 3 named cast members attempted riding at that level of risk." In 1950, with Ford indifferent and the set atmosphere loosely supervised, the three actors simply attempt what they're asked to do. The sequence survives as one of Rio Grande's most visually impressive achievements. Johnson, Carey, and Jarman accomplish something that looks genuinely dangerous because it genuinely is. But the casualness with which Ford allows principal cast members to risk serious injury reflects the production's broader atmosphere of professional carelessness, a director who'd rather be in Ireland, letting cast members risk their necks in Utah. Number 3. Ford edited in camera to block interference. Ford doesn't just shoot Rio Grande fast, he shoots it defensively. In a calculated move to prevent Herbert Yates and Republic Pictures from meddling with his film, Ford employs a technique known as cutting in the camera. He refuses to shoot master shots or alternative angles that studio editors could later use to restructure scenes. Normally, a director shoots a wide shot, then close, ups, then reaction shots, giving the editor options. Ford shoots only the specific pieces he wants, in the exact order he wants them assembled. If Yates hates a scene and wants to recut it, he physically can't. The footage simply doesn't exist. This passive-aggressive brilliance serves two purposes. It drastically speeds up production, getting Ford closer to his Irish exit. But more importantly, it forces the studio to release the film exactly as Ford envisioned it. He hands them a puzzle that can only be put together one way. Ford treats the editing process not as a creative collaboration, but as a preemptive strike against the studio boss he despises. Number 2. Film was Ford's fastest production. John Ford directs Rio Grande in 32 days, faster than any other film in his career. The speed is deliberate. Every day wasted in Utah is a day delayed from Ireland and The Quiet Man. Ford races through the production with a combination of technical mastery and emotional detachment that produces efficient filmmaking without genuine passion. 665 takes across 646 setups in 32 days represents remarkable efficiency, especially for a location shoot in challenging conditions. Monument Valley's extreme heat forces the crew to dig covered pits for shade. The Colorado River scenes require complex logistics. Period-accurate sets must be constructed from scratch in remote Utah wilderness. Ford completes all of it in just over a month. The speed shows in the finished film. Multiple critics describe Rio Grande as the weakest of the Cavalry Trilogy. Scott Eyman writes that it lacks depth. Ford himself admits it's a throwaway. The technical proficiency is evident. Ford can make a good film in his sleep, but the emotional investment that elevates Fort Apache and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon is largely absent. Rio Grande is what great directors produce when they're going through the motions. Number 1. The Quiet Man humiliates Rio Grande. The entire painful exercise of making Rio Grande is justified on one premise. It will earn enough money to offset the losses Yates expects The Quiet Man to generate. Yates calls the Irish story silly and stupid. He predicts it will lose money. He insists on Rio Grande as a financial buffer. The Quiet Man earns $3,800,000 in its first year of release. It becomes one of Republic's top 10 hits. It wins Ford his fourth Best Director Oscar, the only director in history to win 4 times. It becomes one of the most beloved films Ford ever makes. The silly Irish story that Yates tried to kill generates nearly double what Rio Grande earns domestically. Rio Grande, the guaranteed moneymaker, the commercial insurance policy, the film Ford despised making and Wayne had to apologize to enable, it earns $2 million and generates a net profit of $215,634. Respectable, not spectacular. Completely overshadowed by the project it was supposed to protect. Ford's throwaway creates the conditions for his masterpiece. And the masterpiece destroys every assumption that made the throwaway necessary. Rio Grande exists because a studio president held a dream hostage and a legendary director swallowed his pride to keep that dream alive. The film Ford despised making became the foundation for the film he most wanted to make. The throwaway Western that nobody cared about unlocked The Quiet Man, Ford's 4th Oscar, and one of cinema's most beloved romances. The film reminds us that not every masterpiece comes from passion, that sometimes great art requires enduring humiliation, and that occasionally the films we make grudgingly produce more lasting value than we ever intended. Ford races through Rio Grande to get to Ireland. 60 years later, people still watch the film he couldn't wait to finish.